But Melissa and I thought we just might take the first few minutes just to sort of paint a picture for you. This is where we meet for church. Our church just turned 10 at the beginning of February, and we have set up and packed down, as like many do, for all this time. Why did we come? Well, that was because our pastor sent us. Quite a few years ago, Pastor Jack, I think it might have been even 2011, Pastor Jack told us that he and a few other pastors had been praying, and they felt there was to be a church planted in Melbourne, and Melissa and I and our 6 daughters were to be the church planters. And so on the 1st of September 2014, we arrived. We asked ourselves the question, okay, as church planters, and we were from New South Wales, we knew nobody in Victoria. When I say nobody, we'd met Shane Baxter, we'd met Pastor Malcolm McLeod, and we'd met, some of you might know Pastor Daniel Sanders, who's now pastoring Seymour Church. So we had that interaction. I'd been previously the National Director of Chaplaincy, and so I'd been involved in the bushfires in 2009, and been here for about 2 years back and forth, and knew the east side where the fires impacted, but the west of Melbourne knew nothing. So we only came to Melbourne because our pastor said Melbourne. I remember talking to Pastor Jack and saying, where? And he said, buddy, that's up to you. And so Melissa and I literally for quite a long time had a map of Melbourne. We prayed, we're seeking God. We looked at where ACC churches were, and there were so many on the east, and we thought, well, we're not going to go to the east. We want to go where there aren't many ACC churches. And I cut a long story short, there came a moment where we visited Caroline Springs and we just knew we were home. Melissa and I I came first, and then Melissa came with me a couple of weeks later. I didn't tell her where I thought. We just took her around, and then eventually I said to her, where do you think? And she said Caroline Springs, and that was already in my heart, and so here we are. And that's an important thing. It's important to know that God's called you. But we were sent with a mandate. Right? We came as church planters with a mandate. And our mandate, still to this day, is to grow to a church to 1,000 that gives a million a year. That's our mandate. Pastor Jack did not ask us to come for a season. He asked us to come for life. And, why would I lay down a national and international growing ministry just to come and do this for a time? When we thought about this, it was like, okay, we heard Pastor Jack's heart and we went, okay, we're here for life. So when we came, we sold our house. We bought our house. We enrolled our kids in local schools. And we just sort of started to ask the question, okay, how do we get known in the community? How can we meet need? One of the things we saw in this community is people just didn't hang out together. And so we asked, I'm never afraid of asking for money. So I went and asked our council, would they give us a grant so we could build a barbecue trailer. And Caroline Springs made up of estates of about 500 homes with a park in the middle. And it only takes you about 2 hours to letterbox drop 500 homes. And so we would letterbox drop 1 week, and then we would put on a free barbecue and games for the kids in the park. And we've done that multiple times. Then we started to think bigger. We thought, hang on, there's a lovely park on Caroline Springs Lake. Well, let's just start to bring people together. Well, after 10 years, that's grown. At Easter time, we do an Easter Fun Day. We get about 6,000 people turn up. We do Carols by Candlelight. We now get over 10,000 people turn up. And because we've become known, we can honestly say we've never turned away anyone who was in need. If they need food, we give food. Give money, we don't give money. But from the very beginning, from the first service. Our first service was at the West Waters Ballroom here at the Mercure Hotel, and we took up not a tithe for our church, we took up a missions offering to build a well in Cambodia. And that first service, we paid for an entire well in Cambodia. And we just started to teach our people from the very beginning, God calls us to an others-focused life. How we make Jesus' last command our first priority is we either go or we give or we do both. We felt as we came to our 10th year mark, we had a story to tell. Obviously, if you've church planting is just another word for work, and you just do what you got to do. But I've got to say to you that we just stand very humbly because we've seen people capture a vision for missions locally and globally. In our 10 years, are we at $1 million a year yet? No. But at our 9th year, we hit $1 million released for missions. And as I stand before you today, we're just under 1.5 million in the 10 years. Now, at the same time, for the first 4 years of our journey, we were on the end of a faith promise card that you're going to hear about today. People in Sydney, our church family there, were giving so that INChurch Melbourne could be planted. So Melissa and I, it's like, we've faith promised. Hey, we've faith promised for 23 years. But it was a whole different ballgame for us when we're on the end of we're recipients of the sacrifices that people made to give to missions. But by year 4 for us, we were self-sufficient. So salary was covered. And then since that time, we've been able to employ other pastors. We've been able to employ admin team. There's 5 on our team. Obviously a lot more that volunteer really faithfully. But at the same time, last year, we were able to buy our first building. Now you're hearing we meet here. Yeah, well, our first building is an others-focused building. Our community services ministry, which we've set up with a separate legal structure to the church in community care, is about to